On August 28, 1963, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood at the podium in front of Lincoln Memorial, speaking to a crowd estimated about 250,000 people in the historical March on Washington for jobs and freedom. Dr. King said, "I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation." Now, Martin Luther King was one of the most influential speakers, movers, and believers in a dream bigger than himself, better than the status quo. Why did he do it? Why did he stand up, speak out? What did he expect would happen? I say to you today, my friends, that even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. What did Dr. King expect? He expected justice and freedom, the healing of a nation, and the reconciliation of humanity. No small expectation. But that's exactly what Jesus taught him to expect. This faith of ours is no mundane belief. It is a faith that moves mountains. It is a faith that expects grace upon grace out of the fullness of God. That's exactly what a story like the wedding in Cana can teach us. Now, perhaps it might seem too subtle a miracle to fit grander expectations of faith. I mean, certainly, we could easily think so in light of the still resonating voice of Dr. King and the call for equality and true freedom. I can see how it seems anticlimactic as Jesus begins his ministry to simply turn water into wine. I mean, this is no exorcism. It's not a healing. It's not even a great sermon on a hill. And yet, this opening act turns our expectations on their heads and offers an abundant framework for all the ways that God gives grace upon grace. Just think about it. Mary and Jesus and the disciples are all at this wedding when Mary learns that the hosts have run out of wine. So she tells Jesus. Now, Jesus' response is a bit tricky and a different sermon for another day. But even though he says that it is of no concern to her or to him and that his time has not yet come, Mary still tells the servants to do whatever he asks. What does Mary expect? But I wondered, thinking about the servants and the disciples too, all standing there, what do they expect? It's certainly a rather odd instruction to take 6 stone water jars and fill them with water. What good is that going to do? They've run out of wine. Last I checked, water is not quite a substitute for wine at a wedding banquet. But surely they didn't expect a miracle. And yet, there it was. And not just a party-saving miracle, but a definitive expression of God's grace upon grace. Abundant wine, more than could be consumed at the wedding party. And not just any wine, but the finest wine. As notable theologians have described, this is what grace looks like. God's generous dealings with us out of sheer generosity. As in unbelievable, more than you could ever imagine, abundance. What a great opportunity for us to pause and ask ourselves, what is it that we expect of God every day? Is this faith of ours just a feel-good addition to an otherwise mundane life? That's not what God wants for us. God came to us, incarnate in Jesus, to show us God's love. And it's through amazing and abundant moments of healing and reconciliation and forgiveness and generosity that we get to feel and see and touch and hear and even taste God's grace upon grace. This faith of ours is a whole body experience, heart, mind, spirit, and it is a whole life expectation. Now, of course, it's interesting what happens when we expect big things from God all the time. You see, the extraordinary becomes commonplace, but not in a bad way. I loved reading how St. Augustine reacted to today's miracle story from John's Gospel. You see, when Jesus turns water into wine, the steward tastes and is amazed, and the bridegroom is summoned and likely is surprised as well. And St. Augustine, he expresses a response more like, yeah, and? Augustine writes that this sign is not marvelous to those who know that it is God's doing. For the one who made wine on that day at the marriage feast does this every year in vines. For even as that which the servants put into the water pots was turned into wine by the doing of the Lord, so in like manner also is what the clouds pour forth, changed into wine by the doing of that same Lord. When we believe God is at work in us and in the world, we can expect the unexpected, and we will see ordinary things as extraordinary every single day. The mundane becomes miraculous, and the miraculous is commonplace. But that doesn't mean that our faith is passionless or that the work of justice and reconciliation is easy. But we can believe that God's grace will bring abundantly more than we could ever ask or imagine. And we can be filled with expectant trust in God's work every time we hear again that still resonating dream that one day every valley shall be made plain, be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. We expect it will be so as we step into the work of our faith, no matter how long or how hard the struggle. For as Dr. King said, this is our hope. This is our faith. And with this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And this will be the day. This will be the day when all God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my father died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. Expect the unexpected from God, and your faith will change the world. Amen.